Have you ever scrolled past an old photo of people on an airplane and just thought, wow, that looks different? There's this feeling that we've lost something, some kind of elegance or excitement that used to be part of flying. Well, today we're going to dig into that. We're going to find out what really happened to the glamour of hitting the skies.
Lobster, caviar, legroom. Yeah, probably not the first three words that pop into your head when you think about your last flight, right? But believe it or not, that used to be the standard. We're talking about onboard lounges with actual piano bars, gourmet meals served course by course, and seats you could actually stretch out in. It was a totally different world up there.
Seriously, what happened? How did we get from prime rib being carved right at your seat to, fighting over a tiny bag of pretzels? What was the big change? To figure that out, we've got to go back and see where it all started.
Okay, so first off, this era that everyone seems to get all nostalgic about, the Golden Age. We're talking about the late 1950s, the very dawn of the passenger jet age. This was a time when getting on a plane was a truly rare and, frankly, special experience.
I mean, just look at this. The sheer level of luxury here is kind of mind-blowing. Flying wasn't just a way to get from point A to B, it was a full-blown event. Airlines were literally hosting fashion shows in the aisles, passengers would wear their absolute finest clothes, and you could just walk over to a lounge and socialize. You weren't just taking a bus in the sky, you were checking into a flying 5-star hotel.
But let's not get too carried away with the nostalgia here. For all the glamorous, some things were, well, let's just say different. Can you imagine being stuck in a pressurized tube where people were just freely lighting up cigarettes, pipes, even cigars? Even if there were smoking sections, that smoke went everywhere. So yeah, glamorous? For sure. But also really, really smoky.
Okay, so to really get why flying was ever this big, special deal, we have to go back. I mean, way, way back. Before engines, before wings as we know them, to the very first time humans actually left the ground.
So, it's 1783 in France, and the Montgolfier brothers figure out a simple concept: hot air rises. Sounds basic now, but it was revolutionary. And get this, in just a few months, they went from a public demo to sending up a sheep, a duck, and a rooster as the first test pilots, to the first ever manned free flight over Paris. In less than a year, the dream of flight became a reality.
And, this quote from the rocket pioneer Robert Goddard just nails the feeling of that time. What was pure fantasy one day became this breathtaking reality the next, all because of some serious curiosity and a whole lot of courage.
And this kind of innovation, it creates these new problems that, well, spark even more invention. Think about it. Early pilots like Alberto Santos Dumont couldn't be fumbling around for a pocket watch while trying to fly a rickety new machine. So his buddy, a guy named Louis Cartier, designed a watch he could wear on his wrist. The wristwatch, something we all take for granted, was literally born because a pilot needed to tell time without crashing his plane.
All right, so from here on out, things get even crazier. We're moving from just floating around in balloons to actual powered, controlled, heavier-than-air flight. This is where the pace of innovation just completely explodes.
See, the genius of what the Wright brothers did in 1903 wasn't just getting off the ground. It was about control. They were the ones who finally cracked the code, putting together three essential systems: wings for lift, an engine for power, and, this is the key, a way to actually steer the thing. That combination, it changed everything.
And that very first flight, it lasted a grand total of 12 seconds. That's it. Sounds like nothing, right? But it was everything. It was the first time in human history a machine had flown under its own power, with a person in control.
Now fast forward just 6 years. 6! To 1909. A guy named Louis Blériot flies across the English Channel. His flight lasted 37 minutes. Just think about that jump for a second, from 12 seconds to crossing a major body of water in just over half a decade.
And then, hold on, because the next leap is even more mind-blowing. Just a decade after that, in 1919, two British pilots, Alcock and Brown, make the first non-stop flight across the entire Atlantic Ocean, a journey that took 16 grueling hours.
And when I say grueling, I mean it was absolutely terrifying. They were sitting in an open cockpit, freezing to death.
Their radio was dead, the engine was choking on ice, they were trying to navigate using the stars through thick fog. At one point, they lost control completely and went into a death spiral toward the ocean before pulling up. This wasn't travel, this was a high-stakes adventure for survival.
Now, while all this was happening with fixed-wing planes breaking all these records, another revolution was quietly taking shape. A brilliant engineer named Igor Sikorsky was perfecting a totally different way to fly, straight up. In 1939, he made the first truly successful helicopter flight, opening up a whole new dimension of aviation.
So you see where this is all going, right? All this incredible progress from balloons to biplanes to choppers, it was all building the foundation for the era that we started with, the jet age.
And when passenger jets hit the scene, man, it changed everything. All of a sudden, these long, punishing journeys across oceans became manageable trips. The world suddenly felt a whole lot smaller. Flying was faster, it was smoother, and you were way higher than ever before. This was the tech that sparked the golden age.
But here's the thing. It wasn't just the cool new planes. There was a huge economic reason for all the fancy stuff. Before 1978, the government basically set the prices for airline tickets. So, since every airline had to charge pretty much the same amount, they couldn't compete by being cheaper. So how did they compete? By being more luxurious. It became a battle of who had the best food, the comfiest seats, the most glamorous experience.
And that, right there, brings us to the final piece of this whole puzzle. This is the answer to our big question. Where did all the lobster and champagne go? It turns out the entire way the industry made money was about to get turned completely upside down.
Okay, just look at this chart. It lays out the trade-off perfectly. That luxurious coast-to-coast flight back in the golden age, it would have cost you over $4,500 in today's money. Not only that, but it could take over 15 hours with a dozen stops. Today, you can get a ticket for a fraction of that, and you're there in 6 hours, non-stop. We gave up the gourmet meals, but we gained a ton of time and saved a fortune.
This is it, the big one, the single event that really ended the golden age. The Airline Deregulation Act of 1978. This one law changed everything overnight. It meant airlines could finally set their own prices. And immediately, the competition flipped from who has the best caviar to who has the cheapest seat. Low-cost airlines popped up, and the race to the bottom on price began.
And the result? It was insane. Just look at these numbers. Back in the early days of the jet age, you had about 57 million people flying each year. Fast forward to 2019, 4.5 billion. Flying stopped being an exclusive club for the rich. It basically became mass transit for the entire world.
So, in the end, that's what happened to the Glamour. We didn't just lose it by accident. We actively traded it away. We exchanged prime rib for affordability, and we swapped piano bars for the chance to see family across the country or explore a new continent on a budget. So, the real question we're left with is, was it a fair trade?